If you're a spiritual seeker of truth, higher knowledge, and wisdom, and you are on a spiritual journey, it is very natural for you to eventually come to a point in your life whereby you feel as though your material world is failing you, and that includes people and even your livelihood. And when this happens, it is quite normal for you to ask the heart wrenching question: what is my purpose in life? I say heart wrenching because it is often a very confusing time for the seeker, who generally ends up feeling sad, frustrated, and despondent, very unsure as to what to do and which direction to turn. This is a time and a stage when you no longer feel a pull toward what you were previously doing in the world, that old lifestyle, all of which tend to make you feel that world is very meaningless and purposeless. And it is not happening only for the spiritual seeker today. It is also happening for other people, given our current world situation and all the changes that are occurring. People want something different and want something more and deeper, so they're looking elsewhere. As an earnest seeker, when this begins to happen to you, it is like something stirs up in you. It is like something um, grasps you, caught a hold of you, and won't let you go. And therefore, you cannot ignore it because it won't leave you alone. This is normally preceded by intense and extreme feelings of dissatisfaction in your own life, which makes you want something deeper and more meaningful. Because what used to fill you up before can no longer do so. And usually, the spiritual seeker wants to dedicate his or her life to all things spiritual, um, be aligned on a full-time basis to some spiritual organization, church, temple, or mosque, go out and work, change the world. They want to do charity work at a full-time basis, do something that is simple, that is perceived to be humble and not materialistic. Some even just want to just sit and be. Now, many preachers, gurus, spiritual teachers have found themselves in such a place at one point in time, leaving behind an old way of life and livelihood to become who they are today in terms of what they do, that is, preachers, yogis, spiritual teachers. And this is quite admirable and very courageous. It is a brave step to take because if you decide to make a shift from a materialistic world into a deeply spiritual world, what you're basically going to be doing is leaving behind what is familiar and very comfortable. And you're going to also be leaving behind some level of security and find yourself embarking now into a total unknown. And this requires strength, courage, faith, willpower, trust, and a surrender to that universal intelligence we call God. The problem is, if you are seeking meaning now in a new and greater purpose, without finding meaning and purpose within yourself, then what you can find happening is that this greater purpose could eventually fail you, just like your previous purpose that you left behind. And I don't mean to put a damper here on things for you, but why I'm sharing this with you is just for you to get prepared to face this potential reality in an enlightened way when you make your shift to a different path in life. The reason why your new direction could fail you is because if you have some expectation or notion that because what you are now involved in is more spiritual and humbler, compared to what you left behind in the material world, that everything would be so wonderful, loving, ethical, and peaceful, you would quickly find that it may not necessarily be so. In fact, you will meet challenges that may be no easier than your previous purpose in the material world. The reason for this is you have to be challenged so as to bring out any weaknesses in yourself that you did not transcend from your previous world, from your old way of life. You see, you can run, but you cannot hide from yourself. All you've done is simply chosen now a new platform for these weaknesses to arise so that you can finally come to a point where you transcend them. Now, in the spiritual world, if that's what you've chosen, it's going to be a beautiful platform because that is where you're going to gain a lot of wisdom. And the nature of the activities that occur there, they vibrate at a different frequency from the solid and gross material world that you were previously involved in. So do not lose hope. Don't expect that if you shift from that wealth driven or materialistic environment to some worthier cause, because it's spiritual, simple, and humble, that everything will be great there. You see, people at these worthier places are not yet fully enlightened either. They too still have lower qualities and tendencies that they too have to transcend. They have things to work through in themselves to be able to ascend to spiritually, to become peaceful and always loving and caring. So you could end up feeling disappointed if you had some expectation of perfection or higher standard from them or from that environment. Just look at yourself who are now entering such an environment. You are not perfect, and you don't do everything perfectly, so you cannot expect this of others there. I know many people who have actually gone into these new environments and they got so discouraged and fed up and they gave up because they said, oh, well, these people are no better than the people in the outer materialistic world. And so that is why I want to share this knowledge with you so you do not go in with false hopes, but with clear vision. Anything external of yourself does not have the ability to keep you filled up and provide you with continuous meaning, as the outer is always changing. You see, what is seeking meaning is really a mind that is searching for other than what is before it, that it does not like. And the needs of the mind are ever changing. So it is not about finding something meaningful to do as much as it is about whatever you are doing, do it in a meaningful way with the essence and spirit of God in it. Then you will give the best you can. In chapter 103 of my book, Insights, a Life Companion, there's a chapter entitled Work with Love. I encourage you to read it because it's really enlightening and to look at your work in a different way. And I really want you to get all of this that I'm sharing with you because then you will be in a much better position to navigate your way through this transformation or this transition as you leave one environment into another environment, so that you can do it in a much more much wiser way. So, what should you do when you do lose enthusiasm for a worldly life as you once knew it? What I would say to stop the struggle, first of all, consider, of course, your practical needs to live, especially if you want to just sit and be. Because as I always love to say is that we are not all living in the forests of India. to receive the kind-heartedness of people, to provide you with food and shelter, and of course your cell phone during your spiritual search. You see, I believe that many spiritual aspirants uh, end up romanticizing the old way of life of gurus from India, as well as saints such as Saint Francis of Assisi in Italy. And this can end up being detrimental to your well being, especially in this modern world in which we live. You see, in this world, in our modern world, the way it has changed, families these days are so divided and separated. They're not as supportive. Friends don't stick around for long. They hop from one to the other. And gone are the days, especially here in North America where I live. Long ago, they had Little House on the Prairie, those old TV shows, where you saw a sense of community existed and neighborliness, where there was real support and care for one another. So my advice is, do not place too much reliance on these sources. Think about your practical needs to live, not just for while you're young, but especially so as you age, because you will find that as you age, the young people in your generation, they're going to move away and you're going to be left alone. Now, if all of these do not matter to you and you're not too concerned about them, and you decide to abandon the safe and secure and go into the unknown by shifting from the worldly life you once knew to your greater and humbler purpose, or if your practical needs are already jeopardized because you've already shifted, then this is my caution to you, or my word of advice. Be prepared to have immense faith in God, trust, total surrender and reliance on that divine power, that universal source to provide for you and sustain you during this journey. And this is an excellent test because it will allow for your own spiritual expansion. Because I can assure you, during this period, challenges will come your way and your life will go through a lot of tests. And the challenges must come for a very profound reason. It is to facilitate your own growth and spiritual expansion. Because unless you become uncomfortable and learn to trust and surrender and transform, you are going to stay stuck only at one level or state of being. Discomfort matures you spiritually when you transform and you become at ease within. That is when your whole state of being begins to change. And if throughout your challenges in your new purpose you do not give up, or if at times you really want to give up but you don't, because it tugs at you. That is, it does not leave you alone. It nags you, and you cannot leave it alone. It feels right deep within, and you do what you're doing with love and joy, and it is infused with the spirit and essence of God. Then know that this thing you're embarking on, it is what you should be doing. It is the place you should be. It is your purpose, and it feels natural to you in spite of and despite all the challenges. And that is when letting go of the old becomes quite easy, as you come to realize that it has served a wonderful purpose in your life, because it is now bringing you here to your new purpose. So what I want you to take away from this message is to realize that in your new sacred direction, there will be struggles as a spiritual seeker. And to know that your sacred direction has a different and more appealing nature to it. as its energy vibrates at a higher frequency than your previous battlefield, the material world to which you belonged and in which you were lost. But know that this new environment, there you are more than likely to not lose but find your soul. Next, make sure and remember to be wise and take care of your practical needs to live. And if this is already jeopardized, understand that you are going to have willpower, courage, a faith in God, trust and surrender in Him to provide your needs and to sustain you during your challenging times, that He will send your way generous and kind people and resources to help you through those times. And also, finally, loosen your expectation of perfection in others in that new environment, because you may end up losing interest and give up unnecessarily. In other words, do not rely on others to provide you with meaning, to make what you're doing meaningful. Instead, seek meaning within yourself so that you can do what you're doing with meaning in a meaningful way. And in order to do that, it means you must come to realize something greater about yourself. You must become a little more expansive to realize that you are not the mind, you are not the body, you are not what you do in this world. You are not the roles that you play. Okay? And in order to do what you're doing meaningful and become spiritually expansive in this way, you must have a deep connection with that all-pervading divine power in this universe, the universal intelligence that we call God. When you're rooted and grounded there, that is what will help you to go out into the world and stay steady in your new sacred direction and do what you're doing purposefully, because that connection allows you to infuse what you're doing with the Spirit of God, with the essence of God, to do it in a loving and good way.